Listen, I'm Charlie Munger. I'm 99 years old, worth about $2.5 billion, and what I'm about to tell you is going to make every realtor in this country want to throw something at their screen. Don't buy a house. Now, before you click away thinking I've lost my mind, hear me out. I rented my primary residence for over 3 decades. From my 40s all the way through my 70s, I was a renter. Not because I was broke. I was already worth millions. I rented because the mathematics demanded it. And while my neighbors were signing their lives away on 30-year mortgages, hemorrhaging cash on property taxes and maintenance, patting themselves on the back about building equity, I was taking that same money, putting it to work in actual businesses, and watching it compound at 15–20% every single year. Let me share a number that's going to shock most of you. The average person who buys a $400,000 house today, and that's pretty typical in most American cities, will end up paying approximately $1.2 million for that house over 30 years. I'm talking about the total cost when you factor in mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and here's the big one, opportunity cost. $1.2 million for a house that will be worth maybe $600,000 in real, inflation-adjusted dollars 3 decades from now. Now, you want to know what that same $1.2 million becomes if you invested it instead at a conservative 10% annual return. That $1.2 million invested over 30 years becomes $21 million. Let that sink in for a moment. One choice gives you a house. The other choice gives you $21 million in financial freedom. And yet, every financial guru, every parent, every well-meaning friend tells you the exact same thing. Buy a house. It's the American dream. You're throwing money away on rent. Build equity while you're young. They're wrong, completely, utterly, mathematically wrong. And I'm going to prove it to you right now using cold, hard numbers, not emotional appeals. Because real estate is the single biggest financial decision most people will ever make in their entire lives. And most people make it completely, catastrophically wrong. Let's start with the obvious question. If you walk up to someone and ask them, how much does a $400,000 house cost? What do they say? They say $400,000. Wrong. Dead wrong. Let me show you what a $400,000 house actually costs. And I'm going to be conservative with these numbers. The reality for most people is actually worse. First, the down payment. Most people put down 20%, which comes out to $80,000. That's 80 grand you no longer have available to invest. We'll circle back to that in a minute because that's where the really painful part comes in. Now you finance $320,000 at, let's say, 7% interest over 30 years. Pretty standard mortgage these days. Your monthly payment comes to $2,129. Over 30 years, you'll pay $766,440 in total payments. That means you just paid $446,000 in interest alone. You paid for the house twice, once to the seller, once to the bank. But we're not done, not even close. We're just getting started. Property taxes. The national average sits at about 1.1% of home value per year. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,400 annually. Over 30 years, accounting for property value appreciation, you're looking at roughly $180,000 in property taxes. Homeowners insurance. Average cost runs about $1,500 per year. Over 30 years, that's $45,000. Maintenance and repairs. The standard rule of thumb in real estate is 1 to 3% of home value per year. Let's be conservative and say 1.5%. That's $6,000 per year, or $180,000 over 30 years, and that's assuming nothing major breaks down on you. New roof, $15,000. New HVAC system, $8,000. Foundation issues, $25,000. These things happen, and they happen to everyone eventually. HOA fees. If you're in a neighborhood with a homeowners association, and most new developments have them these days, You're paying $200 to $500 every single month. That's another $72,000 to $180,000 over 30 years. Utilities. Homeowners pay significantly more than renters because houses are bigger. Figure an extra $100 to $200 per month. That's $36,000 to $72,000 over 30 years. Closing costs. You paid 2 to 5% just to buy the house. On $400,000, that's $8,000 to $20,000. Then when you eventually sell, you'll pay 6% in realtor commissions. If the house is worth $600,000 when you sell it, that's $36,000 gone just like that. Let's add this all up, shall we? Down payment, $80,000. Mortgage payments, $766,440. Property taxes, $180,000. Insurance, $45,000. Maintenance, $180,000. HOA fees, let's say $100,000 at the mid-range. Extra utilities, $50,000. Closing costs plus selling commission, $50,000. Total cost, $1,451,440. You spent $1.45 million to own a house you bought for $400,000, and that's assuming nothing catastrophic happens. No divorce forcing you to sell at a loss. No job relocation to another city. No housing market crash. No major repairs beyond that 1.5% average. But here's where it gets truly painful. Let's talk about opportunity cost, because this is what separates people who understand money from people who just think they understand money. That $80,000 down payment. What if instead of putting it into a house, you'd invested it in the stock market? At 10% annual returns, which is roughly what the S&P 500 has done historically, that $80,000 becomes $1.4 million in 30 years. The difference between your $2,129 mortgage payment and what you'd pay to rent a similar place, let's say $1,500 per month, that's $629 every single month. If you invested that $629 per month for 30 years at 10%, you'd have $1.3 million. So by buying that house, you gave up approximately $2.7 million in investment returns. Think about that. The house might be worth $600,000 in 30 years. You paid $1.45 million for it. You gave up $2.7 million in investment returns. Your total economic cost is $3.55 million. And for what? For the privilege of mowing your own lawn and fixing your own toilet at 2 in the morning when it breaks. This is exactly why I rented for 3 decades. Now I know what you're thinking. Charlie, everyone can't be wrong. Home ownership has been the American dream for over 100 years. Surely there's something to it, and you'd be absolutely right. Everyone does believe it. Millions and millions of people believe buying a house is the smartest financial move they can make. But that doesn't make it true. Popularity is not the same as correctness. Let me explain exactly why this myth persists, because once you understand the machinery behind it, you'll see the whole thing differently. First, the real estate industry. There are over 2 million licensed real estate agents in America. Their entire job, their entire livelihood, depends on selling houses, not on making you wealthy, on selling houses. They make a 6% commission when you buy and another 6% when you sell. On a $400,000 house, that's $24,000 per transaction. You really think they're going to run ads telling you that renting and investing is the smarter financial choice? Of course not. Banks absolutely love mortgages. It's one of their most profitable products. You're paying them $446,000 in interest over 30 years on that $320,000 loan. They're not going to produce commercials saying, hey, maybe you should rent and invest that money in index funds instead. The government subsidizes homeownership through mortgage interest deductions and all sorts of tax benefits. Why do they do this? Because the construction industry is massive, homeowners vote reliably, and politicians need both the campaign contributions and the votes. It's not about what's financially best for you. It's about what's best for the economy and their reelection campaigns. Your parents and grandparents, they got incredibly lucky with their timing. They bought houses in the 1960s and 70s when homes cost 2 to 3 times the median annual income. Today, homes cost 6 to 10 times median income. The math that worked beautifully for them simply doesn't work for you. But they don't realize the game has changed, so they give you advice based on a world that no longer exists. There's also a massive psychological bias at play here. People who bought houses desperately need to believe it was a good decision. It's called post-purchase rationalization. They'll find any reason, any justification to tell themselves they made the right choice. But I'm building equity. At least I'm not throwing money away on rent. My house is an investment. These are emotional arguments dressed up as financial logic. And here's perhaps the biggest reason this myth persists. People confuse net worth with actual wealth. Yes, after 30 years of payments, you own a house worth $600,000. Your net worth on paper includes that $600,000. But can you spend it? Can you use it? No, not unless you sell the house. And where are you going to live then? You'll have to buy another house or go back to renting. Real wealth, actual wealth, is liquid assets that generate income. A paid-off house generates exactly zero income unless you rent it out to someone else. It just sits there costing you property taxes, insurance, and maintenance year after year after year. It's not an investment. It's an expense you finally finished paying for. This is why you see so many people who are house rich and cash poor. They've got $600,000 in home equity and $20,000 in retirement savings. On paper, they look like they're doing well. In reality, they can't afford to retire because all their wealth is trapped in an illiquid asset that costs them money every single month. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying you should never, ever buy a house under any circumstances. I'm saying most people buy for completely the wrong reasons at completely the wrong time with completely the wrong understanding of what they're actually doing. There are specific situations where buying a house actually makes financial sense. Let me tell you exactly when. Situation 1. You're going to live in the exact same place for at least 10 to 15 years minimum. If you know with absolute certainty that you'll be in the same city, same neighborhood, same house for 15 plus years, buying might make sense because those massive transaction costs of buying and selling, we're talking $60,000 to $80,000 total, get amortized over a longer time period, but be brutally honest with yourself. How many people actually stay in the same house for 15 years and more? The average American moves every 7 years. If you sell in 7 years, you probably lost money on transaction costs alone. Situation 2. You're buying significantly below market value. If you can buy a house for 30 to 40% below market, maybe it's a foreclosure, maybe it's an estate sale, maybe it's a distressed property, the math might work in your favor because you're buying instant equity cushion that protects you from transaction costs and market fluctuations. But this takes real expertise, available cash, and enormous patience. It's not going to an open house on Sunday afternoon and making an offer. It's hunting for deals for months or even years until you find one that actually makes financial sense. Situation 3, you're going to house hack. Buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Live in one unit, rent out the others. If the rental income covers your mortgage, property taxes, and maintenance, now you're essentially living for free while building equity. This is one of the very few scenarios where home ownership actually creates wealth instead of consuming it. But notice something important here. You're not buying a single-family home to live in. You're buying an income-producing asset that happens to have a unit you live in. That's investing, not home ownership. Situation 4. Your local housing cost is so low that buying is genuinely comparable to renting. In some markets, usually small towns or rural areas, houses are remarkably cheap relative to incomes. If you can buy a $150,000 house with an $800 monthly payment, and rent for a similar house runs $750, the math gets a lot closer. You're not giving up much in opportunity cost, but in most American cities today, houses cost 6 to 10 times the median income. That's precisely when renting and investing becomes financially superior. Situation 5. You've already achieved complete financial independence. Once you have $2 to $3 million invested and generating income, once you're already financially free, buying a house with cash is perfectly fine. You're not giving up growth opportunities anymore because you've already won the game. At that point, buy whatever house makes you happy. It's consumption, not investment, but you can afford to consume. But if you're still building wealth, if you're under 50 years old and you don't have 7 figures invested, buying a house is probably the single biggest obstacle standing between you and financial independence. Here's the fundamental question you need to ask yourself, and you need to answer it honestly. Do I want to own a house, or do I want to be wealthy? Because for most people under age 50, in most markets, with most incomes, you have to choose one or the other. The mathematics simply doesn't allow both. If you choose the house, you'll spend your prime earning years, your prime investing years, making mortgage payments, paying property taxes, fixing broken appliances, repainting walls, replacing roofs. You'll reach 65 years old with a paid-off house worth $600,000 and maybe $100,000 in retirement savings if you're lucky. You'll be house rich and cash poor. And you'll have to keep working until you're 70 because you literally cannot afford to retire. If you choose wealth, you'll rent something modest, invest aggressively every single month, and reach 65 years old with $3 to $4 million in liquid, investable assets generating $120,000 to $160,000 per year in passive income. You can retire at 55 if you want to. You can travel anywhere in the world. You can buy a house with cash if you still want one. You have options, you have freedom, you have choices. One path leads to a house. The other path leads to complete financial freedom. Most people choose the house because they've been told their entire lives that it's the smart choice, the responsible choice, the adult choice. It's not. It's the expensive choice that everyone mistakes for the smart choice. So if you're not going to buy a traditional house, what should you actually do instead? Let me give you some real alternatives that actually build wealth. Alternative 1, rent modestly and invest aggressively. This is exactly what I did for 3 decades. Rent a place that costs 30 to 50% less than a mortgage payment would cost you. Take that down payment you didn't spend, take the monthly savings, take the maintenance savings, and invest every penny of it. Aim for $500 to $1,000 per month invested minimum. At $750 per month invested at 10% returns, you'll have $1.7 million in 30 years. That's more wealth than 95% of homeowners will ever accumulate in their entire lives. Alternative 2, house hacking with a multi-unit property. Buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex with an FHA loan at 3.5% down. Live in one unit yourself, rent out the others to tenants. If you structure it correctly, the rental income covers your mortgage and all your expenses. You're living completely free while building equity. After 1 year, you can move out, rent your unit too, and the property should be cash flow positive. Then you do it again. Buy another multi-unit property. Live in one unit, rent out the rest. Do this 3 to 4 times over 10 years, and you'll own $1 to $2 million in income producing real estate. That's genuine wealth, and you did it while living essentially for free the entire time. Alternative 3, geographic arbitrage. Live in a low-cost area while working remotely for a high-paying job based in an expensive city, or retire early in a low-cost country where your dollars stretch much further. If you can make $100,000 per year working remotely and live somewhere where rent costs $800 per month, you can save $50,000 or more every single year. In 10 years, that's $500,000 saved plus investment growth. By age 45 to 50, you're completely financially independent. Compare that to making $100,000 in San Francisco, paying $3,000 per month in rent, and saving maybe $10,000 per year if you're lucky. That's the difference between retiring at 50 and working until 70. Alternative 4 rates real estate investment trusts. Want exposure to real estate returns without any of the headaches of actual ownership? Buy rates through your brokerage account. You get real estate returns, monthly dividend payments, and complete liquidity. No toilets to fix at midnight, no property taxes due every quarter, no tenant drama, no maintenance emergencies. A properly diversified rate portfolio can give you 6 to 8% annual returns plus dividends. It's real estate investment without the time drain and money drain of actual property ownership. Alternative 5, buy land, not structures. Structures depreciate and require constant maintenance. Land appreciates and requires absolutely nothing from you. If you absolutely must buy real estate, buy raw land in the path of future growth. Hold it for 10 to 20 years. Sell it when developers come knocking with cash offers. I've personally made millions using this exact strategy, and I never had to fix a single roof or replace a single water heater. Alternative 6, start a business instead of buying a house. That $80,000 down payment could start a real business. That $2,000 per month mortgage payment could be business investment capital instead. Return on a successful business, 20 to 50% annually or even more. Would you rather own a house appreciating at 3 to 4% per year, or own a business growing at 20 to 30% per year? Every single dollar you put into a house is a dollar you didn't put into a business. And businesses create wealth, houses consume it. Alternative 7, the boring strategy that actually works. Just invest consistently in index funds. $500 per month into an S&P 500 index fund for 30 years at 10% returns equals $1.1 million. That's the entire strategy, nothing complicated, nothing fancy. Most people won't do it because it's too boring. They want to build equity and own something tangible. Those are emotional desires, not financial strategies. I'll take the boring $1.1 million over the exciting $600,000 house every single time. The fundamental point is this. There are dozens of legitimate wealth building strategies that are mathematically superior to buying a primary residence. Renting and investing, house hacking, rates, businesses, index funds, geographic arbitrage. All of them create substantially more wealth with significantly less risk and far more flexibility than traditional home ownership. But nobody talks about these alternatives because the real estate industry, the banks, and the government all profit enormously when you buy a house. They don't profit when you build actual wealth, so they sell you the dream instead. And most people buy it literally and figuratively. Let me close with a story that illustrates everything I've been talking about. I had a neighbor back in the 1970s. Nice guy, worked as an engineer, made roughly the same income I was making at the time. We started from approximately the same place financially. He bought a house for $80,000 with a 30-year mortgage, conventional wisdom, the American dream. I rented a modest place and invested the difference. We'd talk over the fence sometimes on weekends. He'd tell me about his equity building up month by month, his pride of ownership, his landscaping projects, his home improvement plans. I'd listen and nod politely. 30 years later, he owned his house free and clear. It was worth about $350,000 by then. He was genuinely proud. He'd paid it off completely. He owned something tangible. He had his piece of the American dream. I had $15 million in liquid investments. Same starting point, same time frame, same geographic area, completely, dramatically different outcomes. The difference was simple. I understood opportunity cost. He understood pride of ownership. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear, the uncomfortable truth that makes people defensive. Home ownership is consumption disguised as investment. You're not really investing when you buy a house to live in. You're buying a very expensive place to live and convincing yourself it's a smart financial move. It's not a smart financial move, it's an emotional move. And that's perfectly fine if you understand that's exactly what you're doing. If you say to yourself, I know buying this house will cost me $2 million in opportunity cost over 30 years, but I really, really want a house, so I'm willing to pay that price. Then fine, go ahead and buy the house. At least you're making a fully informed decision with your eyes wide open. But most people don't know any of this. They genuinely, sincerely believe that buying a house is building wealth, is investing in their future, is making a smart financial decision. It's not. It's consuming wealth. You're trading money today and even more money tomorrow for the psychological benefit of ownership, for the emotional satisfaction of having your name on a deed, and maybe that trade is worth it to you personally. But don't confuse it with investing. Real investing makes you wealthier over time. Buying a house makes you significantly poorer over time compared to what you could have had, what you should have had if you'd invested that same money instead. That's mathematics, not opinion. So here's my final advice after 99 years on this planet and decades of watching people make financial decisions. If you're under 50 years old, if you're still in your wealth building phase, if you're not already financially independent, do not buy a house. Rent something modest. Invest the difference religiously. Build real liquid wealth first. You can buy a house later with cash when you're actually rich. But if you buy the house now, if you follow conventional wisdom, you'll never get rich. The numbers simply don't work. I'm 99 years old. I've been investing since before most of you were born. I've seen thousands and thousands of people make this exact mistake. I've watched them trade financial freedom for pride of ownership. I've watched them work into their 70s because they spent their entire wealth building years paying for a house instead of building investments that actually generate income. Don't be them, don't make their mistake. Rent, invest, build wealth, buy the house later if you still want it at that point. But whatever you do, stop believing the lie that home ownership creates wealth. It doesn't. It destroys wealth. It consumes wealth. It prevents wealth. The real estate industry, the banks, the government, they've all convinced everyone otherwise. They've sold the entire country on a dream that benefits them, not you. Now you know better. Now you understand the real mathematics behind the decision. What you do with that knowledge is entirely up to you.